on July 6th, Friday here. All right, go for it, Steven.
Yeah. Today I'm 6 and excited to join on the art session. Though we are not proper prepared for this session, right? But we'll focus how we will go for the next. And I was working for the taxes, my taxes, and we'll go to work for payroll, scheduling, Selenium calendar, and Google Calendar, so on, and the worker coordination like global check-ins and others.
Cool. Hi, this is Jay. I'm doing okay. I'm really, really tired because I stayed up all night and for the EXA retreat, which didn't really much happen. I don't even know if it was worth it, but I'm going to be doing it again tomorrow night as well. But so I only got about, a couple hours of sleep, maybe like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. So I'm like a 4.5 probably. In the context of the work, we've been working a lot on various things. We did the quarter moon session, and we talked about the Selenium calendar, as well as so working on the Selenium calendar, is also working on the session support and the budget and the worker coordination and some of the methods and policies, and also some of the client work with the mission within. So moving everything forward little by little, but it is exciting that it's the Earth session. We'll just see how it goes. Check.
Thank you. Hello. Hello, Lucy.
Hi, Lucy.
Hi.
Do you want to check in? We have just completed 3% check-in. Do you want to check in first?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm already checking and happy to join the session. And I'm at 6.5. I'll take 9.
Steve-O, would you like to check in?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm glad to join you in this session once again. I'm at 6.5.
Oh. All right.
Lucy, you said which number are you? 6.5.
Also, you can, Lucy, if you want to take some position, then you can.
Yeah.
So let's move forward.
I'll do facilitation, not taking. Just add your name on the just add your name on the doc. Do you have a doc?
All right, so in terms of attendance, I just wanted to update our Earth session group. There's a lot of people on here. That aren't
can you take timekeeper?
Okay.
Yeah, you can also
I'll take care of that.
What, Lucy?
Maybe everyone
I guess I didn't hear you, Lucy. What?
No, No, I was asking if he can take timekeeping, and he said timekeeper. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He said he's gonna take number. It's Albina. Anything else if you want to take? You want to do? Just check and write your name there. Okay.
So next, moving with the rest of setup. Split up is not required. Check-in done. Attendance and rankings.
I just updated the Skype group, so that looks good. So now I have all the correct people on here. And I think the attendance is all updated. Well, except
Joseph
for
still has no electricity. He just remind me again to remind the people.
What? To remind who for what?
For check-in for app session. He has no electricity.
I don't understand.
Joseph.
Did you
Joseph has no electricity.
Oh, Joseph did check in.
Yeah, he just said to inform.
Well, how does he check in again? He can't Skype?
No, he cannot. He don't have his Skype on the phone. He just called me.
He just called you. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, if he wants to be on the session, he could call you and just do it from the phone call. We also have the conference call online as well, where you can call in and do it by phone. So.
Online? Calling online? Conference line?
Yeah, it's conference call. Yeah.
He called me locally.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can just put him on speakerphone or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, I added him back into our session just so he's there. And we can note that he checked in. So we put here as here's check in. Joseph. And you should do that for the quarter moon as well. You just note that he checked in.
Okay.
Cool. So I think we're good on our attendance. We're still behind on the rankings. So now we can do the evaluation and prioritization.
Yeah.
Unless we want to skip that. I don't know if we have a prioritization spreadsheet.
Yeah, for the art and becomes program 15, we don't have a prioritization spreadsheet yet.
Yeah, so we might want to create that. So we might need to create Earth session prioritization spreadsheet. Has everyone here done their weekly check-in?
I did.
Yeah, I did.
Lucy did. Albina did. Yes. Steve, I'm not sure. Steve, did you complete the?
Yeah, I think he did.
Check-in?
I think Steve did. So. All right. So I think we're ready to go into our desired outcomes, right?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Edit. Yeah.
You want to do that, Lizilu?
There's the first one. Edit the extent of both council members. And the second one is focusing to create email group, send out the invitations, and if anyone want to add something, then ask. Albina, Lucy, desired outcome there. Anyone?
Well, what is this desired outcome? Extend of board council members? What's that?
Sorry, what is that? Adding more board members or what? Meaning? Or having new board members?
FQ1 board.
So is that extending invitations or?
The last March session we will have people, they are not in the budget and they are not active right now. So we can
maybe select other ones. Voting for new ones.
From now, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we would vote for new ones at the Mars session. That's what the Mars session's for.
Oh.
So what's the goal again? What's the desired outcome?
So if we focus this for the Mars, then the board will be count on the Mars. Then it's not applicable right now.
Okay, so maybe we just like plan. We can plan ahead for the Mars session. So the Mars session's coming up in September, so it would be good to start planning that, and it would make sense to start planning that at the Earth session.
Hello.
Lucy? So again, it looks like we have some of the similar problems that we have with...
Joseph want to check in over the phone. Maybe you can, yeah.
Okay, let's give it a try.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Joseph, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm really sorry I couldn't attend the morning session, and even this one I can't attend because the electricity in my area has been cut down. It's because of the bill issue. The owner of the building we are staying in did not pay, so the electricity guys came and cut it in the morning. So I will not be able to attend this session.
Well, thanks for checking in. You're welcome to attend by phone. Like, we can hear you perfectly fine, or do the conference call. And if there are costs to doing phone calls, we can always reimburse as needed. So, but yeah. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye. Continue.
So I was just saying that, you know, I think I've seen this a couple times before here with our desired outcomes and focus of the meeting, but it's like putting on here that you're doing doc prep and desired outcomes for the preparation. It's not exactly what preparation is, because you know there's no agenda, there's no numbers, so it's just very, very little teeny bitty tiny bits like of actual support. So preparation is more like, oh, we completed all of the priorities and decisions doc for the meeting. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So just, I mean, if you're going to do the desired outcomes and focus for the meeting, it should be done really well if you're actually putting effort into it. It just doesn't look like there's that much effort if there's no real agenda items and there's no actual like
I'm just putting the question from preparation that we made during the quarter one day. That right is supposed to be included there. Decision.
I mean, I don't know if we have any decisions. Do we have any decisions?
No.
Because no one did the work, right?
All the decision made by the executive. I don't know if there is a decision.
Yeah, but I mean, no one did the work, so I don't think there's anything we can do about that. right?
Okay.
So we're doing planning and preparation for next Earth session, right? So that'll include the methodology. Wait, no, the methodology proposal we can still do. And then we can go over the purpose of the Earth session. But then policies and methods and decision stock, I just don't see us being able to do that.
We have recruitment, or we don't include that.
What do you mean? What did you say, Lucy?
I said we have the recruitment, or according to what we prepared before, we have recruitment related to ledger. I don't know whether we can include that or not.
I'm still confused. What is it? Recruitment for ledger?
Legion.
Oh, well, that's the Mars session.
Okay.
Also, our preparation for the series session, September.
The Mars session's in September.
Series session.
The series session is every 2 years. We just had a series session like a month or 2 months ago. So it's in another 2 years. So the Mars session's in September, Albina.
Oh, yeah. Just confirmed.
I'm not sure when the Venus session is, but we could check on that. So I don't know if there's other topics that we want to go over. We could look at our next steps from the Quarterman session. Are there any other topics? Zilu, do you want to help finish this off with the agenda? We need times as well.
I can help them. Oh, Zilu. Okay, Zilu, please.
Venus session is also in September.
Okay.
Oh, preparation for Venus.
So do you want to help?
Yeah, I can help if you.
Yes.
Okay. Any other topics?
I added
Priority
plasma.
focus. Yeah, you added that.
I did plasma. Oh, we could also do Legion/member. Relations. Yeah. So do you guys want to add some times, or do you guys want me to do the times?
I'll add also. Proposal, maybe it's a methodology proposal can take 10 minutes.
I would say that could probably be quicker, like 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay. Then we see. The purpose of that.
I can just say 10 minutes, maybe. 5 to 10.
Maybe this one more like 10 to 15.
Yeah, because it has two.
I think all these would be about 10 to 15 minutes.
So preparation for Venus maybe it would be.
Maybe we can go a little faster.
Okay.
Oops.
Priority focus. Priority for the goals.
Only 30 minutes for the goals.
Then we have viewers. It takes 3 to 15 minutes on view. For 10 minutes.
Okay, I think that looks good.
Okay.
Oh wait, what about the mandatory priorities? So we have a desired outcome to get focused on client work and mandatory priorities. So this would also be a topic if we want it to be desired outcome. So you want to always make sure your desired outcomes are matched with your focus for the meeting.
Yeah. It can be a topic and you add the topic.
We have so many. Are we gonna go after all this?
Just manage what we can.
Well, the other options, you don't need to put times in the other options because we're not sure if we're even going to get to those. That's why there are other options. So our goal is just to do the actual agenda items. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to. Is there any?
But the mandatory priorities are missing, right? So the desired outcomes you have get focused on client work mandatory priorities, but then in the group team setup, it doesn't have that.
Can we consider mandatory priorities?
Yes, I'm adding that.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna do that one last.
Yeah, before the view up, I'll just add down there.
Okay.
How many minutes? 10, 15?
Yeah.
All right, so Zilu, do you want to give a try finishing up the desired outcomes and agenda?
Yes. So we have desired outcomes and the topics organized. So anyone add to any other topics or desired outcomes, or we are done with this? Right. So let's move on the first.
So the correct question, Zilu, would be, are there any objections to our desired outcomes and focus of the meeting topic?
So is there any objections with the topics and the outcomes?
Perfect. Okay. Good job. Now we can note that we have agreement on. Oh no, what happened?
Sorry, just pasting that.
So we are moving to the first topic, methodology proposal.
We are at the bottom of the hour. We stretch for 30 seconds, then we start with the first topic.
Oh, nice timekeeper. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, continue, Zil.
So the first topic is methodology proposal. Do you wanna go with this first, Vijay? We have the methodology proposal drop there. Let me link it there.
So we always do the methodology proposal at all the planetary sessions. So you just go, and this is part of preparing the doc. Like when you go to the global main doc, and you just grab the methodology proposal, and you want to link it.
Got it.
So do you want to finish it up,
I
Zilu?
got it. It will be better if you put me in the methodology proposal.
Okay, well, all you have to do is just read it. Does anyone else want to do the methodology proposal?
The proposal for the methodology, the terms of involvement, approve the Unity methodology and all related Unity methods, policies, protocols, guidelines, systems, and processes. So we have the doc link for the proposals.
So the facilitator would ask if there's any questions, are there any concerns, and are there any objections? Does that make sense, Zilu?
Yes. So if any objection with the proposal there, or any concern?
Well, one at a time. So just start with questions. You're doing great, Zilu. So just do one at a time. So don't ask for questions and concerns and objections all at the same time, because then if there are any, you would, yeah. So just do one at a time.
No objection.
No. So you have to go through the process for getting agreement is the 3 steps. There's questions, and then there either are questions or there's not questions. Then after you address the questions, then you go on to concerns, and there either are concerns or they're not concerns. And then only after you've addressed the questions and the concerns, then you do the objections, okay? Do you understand, Zilu, or?
Yes. Is there any objection or any concern?
No, you're skipping. You keep skipping the questions and the concerns. So you have to ask the group, are there any questions before you can go to are there any objections? Do you understand or no?
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so one at a time.
Five seconds.
What? So guys, we do this at every single meeting. Everyone who should know how to do a proposal. It's very simple, right? The facilitator, and this is great training for you, Zilu. You ask, are there any questions? Okay, and then if there's no response, then there's none. And then only after the questions are done, then you go on to concerns. And then you ask, are there any concerns? Okay, we always do this. This is how we always do it, and it's important to learn how to do this. Albina?
Okay, Zilu, you start with the proposal itself. The proposal states that to approve the Unity methodology and all related Unity methods, policies, protocols, guidelines, systems, and processes. Do we have questions on the proposals?
Cool. No questions on the proposal.
No questions. Do we have a concern for the proposals?
No concern.
No concern.
Objection.
Any objection for the proposal?
No.
Yeah, like that. It's just you have to ask one, then you ask another one. Don't ask them at once. It's always 3.
Okay, Zilu, does that make sense, Zilu? You just ask one at a time, one by one.
Yeah, yes, it makes sense now.
All right, so let's move on to the purpose of the Earth session.
Okay.
Do you guys know the purpose of the Earth session, or does anyone have an idea?
It is the session for the board members.
Yes. Anything else?
So it's a board meeting, right?
Yeah, well, technically it's council meeting, which is equal to the boards plus the councils. So it'll be the supra council, which is all boards plus all councils within the network. Is there anything else about it, or should I go through it? Anyone know anything else about their session?
Also decisions making, making session also probably. I'm not sure.
Well, so overall, for the decision making, the super bouncil would review all decisions made
By the board member.
well, no, made by the executive team. Right, so this would be from the Venus session. So the structure, basically, we have the Legion, and then you have the Mars session, which is the membership. So the membership appoints the board. So then you have the Earth session, which is the council. And this would be the series. The series session is the Legion. And then you have the Venus session, which is the executive team. Okay? So the Mars, Earth, and Venus session are the main sessions for the functioning of the network. And then after the Venus session, what do you have after the Venus session?
And Jay, why are we voting again for methodology and we did that 2017?
We do it at every single planetary session.
Okay.
Yeah, because
we are 3 minutes into this topic.
Okay.
So anyways,
3 minutes into this topic.
Cool. So the Mercury session comes before the Venus session. This would be the management team. Right? And then before the Mercury session, we have the core team, right? So when you're doing all of the decisions skip the Mercury session and go straight to the Venus session. All the decisions are reviewed at the Venus session every about 100, 110 days. And then the Earth session does one last review of all the policies and all of the decisions that have been made, and basically stamps them, right? So the super council has the ultimate power and all the legal authority for the organization and dealing with any issues. And then the super membership, the next level up, doesn't address any direct proposals of the organization. It only oversees its own processes. So the super council is definitely very important in the makeup of the structure. But of course, it only happens like twice a year. And in this time, we, the goal will be to review all the policies and decisions, etc. But that would start at the Venus session. I think that's pretty much it on the Earth session. Are there any questions about the Earth session?
So the board members elected on the March session. So the super members elected which session?
The what?
The super member. So the March session is for the super membership. So the membership is a position, right?
Yeah, the membership is we have open membership, so anyone can be a member. You just have to show up. So the membership is open, right? So everyone comes and appoints the boards at the membership meeting, and different organizations within the network have different membership criteria. So it depends on which boards you can be involved in appointing. And then the Legion is done primarily it's just online. It's asynchronous, right? So the Legion is just like, you don't have to actually show up to be in the Legion. Actually showing up at a session is the membership. Like anyone who shows up in a real-time session actually is a member. Does that make sense? Also, it's important to note that the Mars session is everybody's invited to the Mars session regardless of pay. So it's the first session that all workers are invited to. And then only people who are appointed to the board are invited to the Earth session, along with support staff and executives.
We have 6 minutes into this topic.
But the biggest session by far would be the Mars session. The series session could technically be just as big, if not bigger, but we're not expecting anyone who's not already a member to show up at the series session. It would just be an extension of the super membership. But the Legion exists asynchronously, which is the direct democracy and direct elections with the Legion. Hopefully that makes sense.
So, regarding only people who are appointed to attend the act session, what happened? Like, for example, we have those who are appointed they're not no longer on it. Then can we appoint other members again to join those who are still present?
At the Mars session.
Yes, at the Mars session.
For the Mars session is this.
Yeah, okay. But we did make a mistake, which was that at the Mars session the last time, there should have been the full rankings of all of the elections, the Mars elections. So the Mars elections is important and should have the entire rankings and all the alternates. For whatever reason, we lost that and we only had the list of the top 7 people, 8 if you include Shigimi. And so we just didn't have the alternates. So we should have had the alternates, and then we could have invited the alternates, and they all should have been invited weeks and weeks and weeks ago. But we're just not really doing the work. And I mean, it's not like, even when we had lots of people working, we still weren't doing the work, you know? So it's just a matter of stepping it up, you know, and just realizing that we have to plan ahead. So that's the main thing we're gonna talk about today, is how do we plan ahead so that, you know, the Mercury, Venus, Earth session, and Mars session and series sessions are all planned, organized, coordinated. Like, this is the essence of the work that we're getting paid to do. The most important thing, right, is to make sure that our sessions are run correctly and the right people are invited so that the network is functional. Otherwise, there is no network. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions about the Earth session?
I have no question from my side.
Yeah. And once we get used to it, I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that much work. Like the minimal needed to have all these sessions be successful is really not that much, and they only happen like, you know, once every 6 months or once a year or once every 3 or 4 months, you know. And we're pretty much fine on the Mercury session. All right, cool. So I think we're good. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's do some planning and preparation. I think the best thing to start with is understanding the overall session support. So let's grab the session support doc. So this is all part of session support. And every single session has a different set of priorities and tasks and responsibilities that need to happen for that session. So it's important that we create responsibility organizing for every single session. And then in the context of the difference, is that the primary difference, or the difference between you know, regular worker sessions and planetary sessions, is that for worker sessions, you know, the preparation is mainly like, you know, agenda, doc, you know, reminders, et cetera, right? I mean, you know, maybe the budget, right? But when you do planetary sessions, the work that needs to get done is more like invitations, right? Convergence, or what's it called? Instigation, or simpler word, convening, right? So invitations, convening, compiling, you know, decisions, etc. You know, plasma, you know, which is our leadership accountability. Does that make sense? So planetary sessions have a very different focus than the worker sessions. Also, we made all the planetary sessions, we made them client work. So this is training for client work. So then this would be our general session support system for the larger sessions. So the first part is the member relations and structure setup, which is also client work as part of member Legion members relations. So unless you actually set up the groups, they don't really exist. So hopefully that makes sense to a certain degree. Does anyone understand that? Or should I go over it again? All right, I'm going to go over it again. So, right, so step 3 is invitations to the calendar event, right? You can only invite people after you know who you're inviting. Right? So step 0 is to actually build the structure and build the bouncels and the boards, and to actually know who you're inviting to the event. Once you have the people who've joined, then you're good to go. So for example, you know, if you're not part of the FCON community network, we're not going to invite you to the Earth session. The reason why all of us are invited to the Earth session is because we joined and are workers with the FCON community network. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what step 0 is. Step 0 is to actually create the super bouncil. So until we have the super bouncil, right, where you actually have to see if people want to join the super bouncil. If they don't want to join the super bouncil, we're not going to invite them to the Earth session. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's write this down. So we only invite people to the Earth session who join the super bouncil. So first they have to join the super bouncil. And then in step 3, we only invite the people who joined. Okay? So does anyone understand the 0 process, the setup?
Yeah.
Does anyone understand the setup?
Yes.
Do you want to explain it real quick?
Yeah, step 0. First, you have to know who you are inviting to the event. So only inviting people to the art session to join the super bounce. But in process 3, step 3, only invite people to join the session.
No, so you join as a member, right? We invite the existing members. So we only invite people who are already on a bounce, a board or a council.
Okay, yeah. Step 3 is to invite the existing members, but step 1, now you invite people to join, to be the members.
Exactly. So
We are
this is
6
all about,
minutes into this topic.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Steve. So this is all about
Jay, without step 0, then step 3 cannot exist.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Or it can't be done correctly, right?
Yeah.
So this is all
Jay,
about
now
rights.
does that mean you can invite anyone on step 0 to become a member? Yes.
That for the membership for the Mars session, yes, and the same would be true for our worker sessions. Like anyone can be a worker, but they have to fit in the budget, right? So if our budget's 0, then everyone needs to volunteer. The point is that we're open to people being involved, but they have to have a right to be involved. So it's all about who has rights and who has power, and the power to be able to vote on the particular group, right?
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So anyways, after you cover the 0 process, the rest of it is pretty simple, right? So it's just like, schedule and calendar verification, make sure you know the date is correct so that we're actually inviting people to create the right day and time. The second process is the calendar event creation, which is just on the Google Calendar. The Google Calendar event is important because that's where you're actually inviting people to. All right, the third process is invitations to the calendar event. That's where you actually invite people and get them signed up onto the Google Calendar. Then you set up the automatic reminders to make sure everybody's getting regular reminders so that they show up to the session, as opposed to inviting them, a few hours before the session. You want to remind them many weeks and months ahead of time. Step 5, document and creation of the session prep. This is where you actually are creating the document and preparing the agenda and coordinating preparation and voting and prioritization, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you do the real-time session itself. So this is the actual session. So as a whole, all the positions, you know, the actual facilitation, all of that, that's all part of session support, but it's real time. Then you have follow-up from the session. So after the session, there's follow-up. There's this would include session value tracking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So every session, including the Earth session, is going to have a verification spreadsheet for all the things that need to happen. And one of the responsibilities I want to add here is list of decisions from Venus session and list of policies and methods.
You see, every session need to has a verification spreadsheet.
Yeah. You know, at least all of the planetary sessions, because each planetary session will have slightly different work that needs to happen. So because they're different, right? So each session has a different focus. It has different preparation that needs to happen, different work that needs to happen, different groups and people that need to be communicated and talked to. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So on the Earth session systems doc is where we'll list all the processes that need to happen. And then here we also have the timeline. So I can put the timeline here as well. And so every time you have a session, the timeline is going to be different. So for example, the timeline for the Mars session obviously is not the Earth session, right? Earth session timeline. So the Mars session timeline is going to be very different, right? The Earth session and the Council, as far as the network is concerned, this determines all of our policies, all the legal decisions. All right, cool. Thanks, Eva. So the Council determines all of our policies, all of our budgeting, all of our you know, power distribution, you know, control. I mean, that's very important, right? The Earth session is very important, as well as the Mars session and the Venus session. So these would be hard stop, soft stop deadlines, right? We need to complete. So in the next 2 months, we need to complete the setup. So the Super Board membership relations should all be completed in the next 2 months. Otherwise, we should do a soft stop. Right? And then we also want to get our schedule and calendar verification, and then hopefully also get the actual event calendar created. So if all of this can happen in the first couple months, step 0, 1, and 2, then we'll be prepared to start sending out invitations in September. And then by October, we'll have all of our automatic reminders going on. And then by December, we're already creating all the documentation, group communications, prioritization, you know, and even engaging participants. And then by the you know, by the time January comes around, it's like everybody knows what's going on and knows that the session's happening and what the agenda is going to be, and can participate. And we'll have an RSVP, everything, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah, at least you know, we have the way forward. We know what we can do.
Yeah.
Like before, it just like we know only vacation. More than that, no.
What?
At least we have go ahead and we have at least a clear information on what to work on to prepare our session on any other session.
Well, I mean, it's not that clear. It's. I mean, there's everything we work on. We have to organize over time, right? So, the key is just prioritizing it. If we don't prioritize it, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter what we say. If we don't prioritize it, it doesn't happen. So, right now we're prioritizing planning for the Earth session, which is great, but we're doing it at this Earth session because we didn't do it before. We should have done it before, right? So, but there's still a lot of more that's not clear here that we're going to need to make sure is clear.
Oh, is this apply to other session, right? Also like certain session, the same procedures?
Well, here is the general, this is the general session support system, right? 0, 1, 2, these are all the processes that apply to all sessions. But for each session, it's going to be a different timeline. It's going to be different tasks, different responsibilities, different people, different groups, different goals. It's all different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So everyone's going to have its own verification spreadsheet and its own systems doc that organizes the timeline and the goals and how it's all going to be coordinated. And really, there should be a separate client doc as well. If it's client work, there should be a client doc. The client doc should have, who's the manager, who's coordinating all the responsibilities, who's making sure that it's followed through. That make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the idea is just the same, only that the timing and the members are.
Yeah, once we get a hang of this, the difference of the Earth session, the Mars session, the Venus session, it's all pretty minor. It's we just need to do the work. And if you think about it, the methods is the most important thing, right? The method is why this is even happening at all, is because in our methods, we prioritize, we organize, we brainstorm, we make sure that we have our clear goals, we set up our responsibilities, we implement them, we train, and we just do the same thing over and over and over again. Like none of this would even exist without Wahoo, right? Me and Wahoo met and we went over all the general support systems, we went over our timeline, everything for the Earth session. So now we have all this information to share. If me and Wahoo didn't do that, we wouldn't have this. Does that make sense? So it's just following our methods, prioritizing, getting deeper and deeper into it, and then just keeping it moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's nothing special about any of this. It's just following the same method that we're always supposed to follow. So session support is actually pretty simple. It just takes effort. You actually have to follow up on it. It's different than like a task. Like most tasks, you have your responsibility, you do the work, and then it's done, right? With session support, that just doesn't exist. There is no responsibility in session support where you just go, do your responsibility, and that's done. It just doesn't exist, right? Session support is all about long-term thinking. You do a little tiny bit of work, and then you have to wait weeks, sometimes months, to hear back, to get an RSVP, to communicate, to do the next step. It's just like the timeline for the session support is just completely different than most responsibilities. And that's why we lose sight of it, because it's just at a different arc. We call it an arc. And this is for the Earth session, it's a 6-month arc. So in order to actually take responsibility and support the session support for the Earth session, you have to change your mentality to be thinking in the perspective of 6 months in a 6-month arc, as opposed to what are you going to do today. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's difficult to do that. It's not easy to do that. But once we get used to it, it should be pretty easy. All right. So what I would recommend here is if we have 5 more minutes, we can go through the 0 process a little bit more, because there's a lot of details here that need to be dealt with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we would want to create a doc just for member relations. This would be board member relations. Super Council member relations. So we're also we either have a spreadsheet or need to create a spreadsheet for the list of boards. I can check really quick just to see if I potentially have it. So list of I think this is it.
We have it. I was to create the doc for that.
No, I think there is somewhere. It exists somewhere. It's somewhere.
Yeah. So this is this is old for sure. This is old. But these would
Okay, let
be.
me.
Just wait, Lucy, a minute before you create. Just a minute.
But I still think unless that's ordinary projects. Yeah. So, but I still think we want a new doc. So, a new spreadsheet. So this has the list of most of the boards and councils. Right, so you can see the type. Was it an advisory? The council? Is it a board? Right, so these are all the councils, boards, you know, and groups that would be invited to the Supra Council. Oh, and obviously, there's one other key one that we need to add. And this would be the FQN worker board. Right. So the FQN worker board is our group. So our organization, you know, that we are building, we're networking to, we're the FQN worker organization, right? We created at the Mars session, and that's our organization that we have co-created together. So we have our own board and our own decision makers, and we're going to continue to grow that, right? But it's just one of, you know, dozens of boards, okay, in the network.
Yeah.
So so this spreadsheet. So did you make the spreadsheet already?
This no.
Oh, that's the doc. Okay, so that's the doc. Okay, so then we're gonna create a spreadsheet.
I'm making a spreadsheet now.
So create a spreadsheet for listing all board and council members. Right, so this is basically our public lists. And then here we're going to create a spread. This one we have a list. We already have a contact list. Okay, so we have the contact list, but this is private information. So this would be like executives only. So then what's going to happen is we need to create, and this would be a responsibility, is this is another project, right? So project databases and lists, okay? And the responsibility here is our update and coordinate email lists and Google groups. Okay.
Yeah.
So we only really need to worry about one, or about a few groups, right? So there's going to be a couple. There's the Supra Council joining the, let's call it just the joining Supra Council email group, and we're going to use this to allow people to join. Then we're going to have the actual Supra Council email group, and then we're going to have the Supra Council Google group. So the Google group is for the automatic reminders, but we'll have them linked. So they're going to link. We do this for almost all of our groups. There's usually, every group will have at least like, we'll usually have 3 email groups or 2 email groups and a Google group. Okay. So the database and lists is the most difficult part. And this is going to involve me the most. But once we have the email group set up, then everything else is essential, because you just invite the Google group to the calendar listing, and then it's done. Everybody's invited. So it all basically automates everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the only email list and communications that involves everyone who has a quote right to join the
We don't have Zillow.
We lost the list.
Okay.
I hope we'll come back.
Yeah, Zero left a couple minutes ago.
Cool. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously I could go on about how the details work, but this is the parts of things that we've never done before. We never focus on our databases and lists. So that's a pretty big deal. From here, once we get our databases and lists organized and functional, then it's really just like our websites, and then we're fully functional as a team. Like there's so many databases and lists that we've not even touched yet. And remember, we have like literally tens of thousands of emails. Like there's so many people that we can contact and get involved. It's just like we're not doing the work yet, but we'll get there. So let's start on the databases and lists. Get this done. We don't need to do it fast. We have to sit down and slowly and methodologically create the groups, make sure they're created correctly, make sure they're in the right places, and it happens once, right? Only have to do this once, and then it's done. Then we have the groups, then we just connect the list to the groups and then send the emails out, and then everything else happens automatically. Automatic reminders, everything's connected. A lot of work has gone into setting up the system so that it's all automated. But the initial setup is still manual, but we only have to do it once. So we have to do it once for the Earth session, once for the Mars session, once for the Venus session, etc., etc. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions about the zero process?
No.
So I would say the only other thing in terms of the invitations is that there is, we have to edit the invitation. There's a whole bunch of processes in creating the invitation, editing the invitation, creating the schedule, which the schedule needs to happen together, right? So this third process is the next most important process here, is the actual invitation. And so it's very detailed. So like, let's say step one is drafting the invitation. Step two is getting approval for the schedule. So this happens at a main session, right? So that every time we have a schedule. So for example, you might do like the advisory board meeting for the first hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that's the second hour. And then the first hour we do FQN experience. And then third hour we do maybe it's a break, right? And fourth hour might be the actual bouncing meeting, right? Right. So this all needs to get approved, and then you finalize invitation, and then step 4 you want to send out invitation. So if you have everything set up, this is the same thing with payroll and everything. If you have the zero process set up, sending out the invitation is the easiest part, because once you have the invitation, you just stick it in an email, push new email, copy and paste, it goes to the email group, and then you're done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the sending out of the invitation is it takes minutes to send out the invitation. Maybe a little longer than minutes, but the invitation should not be the problem. The problem is really getting the setup going. And the setup only has to happen once. Cool. So I think we're done.
For how long can you remind us? How is it done? Frequency of
the automatic reminders?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have that on here somewhere. So we have an entire automatic messaging doc.
Okay.
And we have an entire automatic repetitive communication systems plan. But here we go. Reminders are set up for 1 week before, 1 day before, 1 hour before, 2 weeks for the longer sessions, 2 weeks before, 1 month before. So Earth session, Mars session should get a month before reminder. And then 2 weeks before, and then 1 week before, and then 2 days before, and then 1 day before, and then, maybe even 6 hours,
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like you're just making sure that people know it's coming up.
Yeah.
And remember, for some people, it'll be in the middle of the night. So it's like they're not going to be expecting it unless you give them a lot of forewarning. And other people, there's certain people who just won't show up because it is in the middle of the night, right? If it happened to be during the day, they would show up, but because it's in the middle of the night, they don't want to show up. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. All right, so I think we're ready to move on.
We did not have a break at the top of the hour. Can we have 4 minutes, then we come to the next topic?
Yes.
So where can we link the spreadsheet for listing all the super board and council members?
Yeah, you just list it to the council, the Earth session systems doc.
Yeah.
Likewise, super council member doc, right?
What?
Both two of them. We have also the doc that
there is Earth doc you can link there or on the system doc. Earth session system doc.
Okay. Did they copy the right thing on that spreadsheet?
What did you copy?
The membership, those names I just pasted there.
I don't know.
Can you check and we
What you're talking about? Where did you link? On where?
Okay. On the spreadsheet. Let's go for break then.
All right, so are we taking a break, or are any other questions?
No questions.
So as far as those databases and lists, this is the hardest part. I would say we could probably get through this in 1 hour, or even less. Right, so it's not a lot of work that we would need to do to get this set up, right? And then it's just a matter of updating. So there's the setup.
So where can we inject all these notes?
What?
The note that you have, general session support, our session, all these notes. Where can we inject?
Well, there should be an Earth session client doc.
Yes, there is Earth session doc, Lucy.
Well, no, there's the Earth session systems doc, which is separate. There should also be an Earth session client doc, which is because this is client work, right? There's supposed to be somewhere where we document all of the work that we're doing as workers for the client. The client in this case is the Earth session, right? Does that make sense?
So we created them.
Yeah, and it's very important to understand within the structure of the network that the Earth session exists independently of the African Community Network. All right, and I know that might not make sense to you, but basically the Earth Session is a public, transparent, open space that anyone across the entire world can get involved in and organize anything they want to. Right? We don't control the Earth Session in any way whatsoever. We are just trying to help host it. And then any group and any organization, anyone who wants to do any agenda can do it during the Earth Session, and we're just there to host and help. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the Earth Session itself exists independently, can have its own budget, can have its own staff, can have its own, identity separate from the African Community Network. It's its own, and it'll have its own plan, right? So eventually we're creating the Earth Plan. And then the plan itself can be funded and supported just like the Saturn plan and the Ceres plan, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. So I think we're ready.
I think we can also put this on session support, like a general session support system. It needs to be on also session support.
It's already there, but you can update it. If you want to update it, you can update it.
Okay.
This is the art session client doc I created. Put it inside. Link there.
Then you can copy paste the information.
All right, so we're taking a break now or what?
Yeah. Let's take 5 minutes.
Cool.
I'm back.
I'm back.
Cool. All right, so shall we get started?
I'm back.
We take more than 5 minutes.
It's okay. We can get done in the next half an hour. That would be good, and then
Yeah.
But yeah, let's keep going. What's the next topic?
Wait, I get it.
Preparation for Mars session.
Session preparation.
All right, so Mars session, huh? So the reason why we would talk about the Mars session within the Earth session is because the Earth session is actually below the Mars session. The Mars session has more power, more importance. You know, it controls the council. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So we're gonna want the membership list. I'm telling you, the membership list we currently have is probably anywhere from 500 plus people, maybe 1,000. I don't know. Right, then we would go ahead and invite or allow each of these members has a right to join the membership meeting, right? So this would be the Mars session, right? So of the 500 people, maybe we get 20 active members. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this would be 500 people, and this would be inactive. The question is, of the 500 people who are out there, we get 20 active members, plus 10 staff would equal maybe 30 people who show up to the Mars session, right? And this would be for September, right? And obviously it could grow from there. Once we start inviting people and we activate the membership, it could grow, right? And it could get much bigger. What's the most important component of the decision making at the Mars session? What's the most important decision at the Mars session?
Appointing the board members.
Yes, appointment of the board members. How do we do that with the FPN Community Network?
We see the rankings through rankings.
Rankings. So this would be the election rankings. For the membership and board members, we may have separate election rankings for various organizations and different boards. So as you can see here, we have as many as a dozen boards. Have as many as a dozen boards. So it is possible that each board may have its own elections. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
But a lot of them will be combined in the same rankings, right? So overall, we may end up with, I don't know, 3 to 5 election forms for various organizations. So when does the voting, the election voting happen?
Excuse me.
What are the options? When could the election voting happen?
Is it before the mass session?
Before the Mars session, exactly. So in order for us to do the Mars session correctly, all of the voting forms, right? So this would be a responsibility. So this would be Mars session election ranking voting forms. That's a very important responsibility. And this is the most important responsibility because this is how the boards get appointed. Right? So we need to list all people involved. We need to start creating info docs for each person. Each person is going to have an information doc. It's kind of like an information profile and profile, right? Or like info profile. This is going to have their positions, involvement, you know, life goals, et cetera, right? So, and then you'll be able to link to each person's information when you are looking at them on the voting form, okay? So that people in the public and everything can vote. I mean that's pretty much it for me. I mean, there are a lot of other things that the Mars session can do, but this is all that's important, right? The purpose of the Mars session is to appoint the board. And so there you go.
We are 5 minutes into this topic.
So are there any other questions about preparing for the Mars session? I mean, all the other things still apply. You know, everything that we went over for the Earth session, all of these steps, the setup, schedule verification, calendar invitations, all this stuff, everything applies. But the only thing that's really different, that's super duper important, is this, is the actual Mars session election rankings voting forms.
So can we have a different voting forms apart from the one we have?
We may have to, yes. So
and
think
now
about
for the creation for the doc for information for personal information. This should be internal, right? Or also for the external members.
the information doc would be, this is going to be for all members. All members will have a info doc, and eventually all members will have a profile page on the website, right? And this is also part of the Legion/member relations, okay?
Yeah.
So every member has a profile page that explains their engagement and involvement with the network.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's good.
And then, so if we have the FQN community network elections, you know, this is the current form, right? This is used to appoint the FQN workers board. Okay?
Yeah.
So for any other boards, we would have to use other forms. And we can go over the other elections. The highest level elections would be the supra council elections, or I guess that would be a super board elections technically, for the entire network. So you technically can elect people from the entire network into the super board if we wanted to. This is optional. We don't have to do that, but we certainly could. And then for individual organizations, like Innovate United LLC, Community Life Network, WCTC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So these are much smaller memberships. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a whole bunch of other things that we could go into the Mars session, but I mean, unless there's a question or someone wants to know more about it, there's already so much work here to do. It's just a waste of my time to go over it and then none of it get done, you know?
Yeah.
So there's already so much work. Like, I'd be surprised if we get all the work that already exists done, you know? So I think we should just move on. I mean, I don't know what else to say here.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, the problem is we cannot do all these unless we do it as a team.
Yeah, exactly. We have to work as a team. But, you know, the entire Mars session, so, well, I guess we could look at the timeline. So let's look at the timeline real quick. You know the Mars session is in September, right?
Yeah.
So that gives us July, August, and September. So we only have 3 months for this, right? That's not a lot of time. So all we really need to do is in August, we need to have our membership list. So there's going to be a public list of members, and then we have the private contact list. And we need to create our email list in Google group. Create the invitation event, and then, you know, send out invitations. Draft invitations, send out invitations. You know, so it shouldn't be that difficult. You know, I would say that if we focused on it, we could do it in 5 hours. So 1 hour a day for 5 days, done. And then this would be about 30 people. And we get 30 people to the event.
So are we going to create a... I'm still confused on creating the form. What should we include on the form? The name of the people or what?
We already have the FKN Community Network elections form, so that one already exists. Well, I'm not saying that we need to do any of that for this time around. I'm just saying that this is something that's important that needs to get done. But it doesn't even matter if we don't do all of this first. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is like the last step, right? So does anyone know the date of the Mars session?
Yeah, 16th.
So it's September 16th, right?
Yes.
So I would say on September 1st, right? We is when we would want to send out the voting forms. So we give them 2 weeks. We give 1 to 2 weeks for voting. That make sense?
Yes.
So you do all this in August, get everybody invited, get everything organized, get the Mars session set up. Then in September 1st, we actually do the voting forms. So the first week of September. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Also, I just want to mention here that in my mind, right, so this is Jay's perception, and it's hypothetical, but in my mind, if we run professional, you know, courteous, effective, and efficient membership sessions, this equals money. Right? Our membership is our investors. They are our donors. They are our clients. That makes sense? Do you guys understand how important the membership meeting is?
Yeah.
So this is, the membership meeting is the time where we hold ourselves accountable. This is when the membership comes in and appoints the board that controls everything. And so therefore, we're accountable to the members. This is how you build public accountability, right? Does that make sense? This is the definition of public accountability. This is where the public holds us accountable, is the Mars session. Like, it's that important. And if we run the Mars session well, and people see that we're organized and that we're actually engaging and interactive, and basically we're not going public yet, but we're going to interact with our existing members. We have at least 500 members in our network. Let's interact with them. Show them that we're communicating and that we're interacting and that we're collaborating and that we want feedback and support and involvement. Boom. People are going to be impressed with that. And then they're going to tell their friends about us. And then we're going to be bringing in money. Okay? And we're going to build clients. This is our chance to tell the people with money and the people who are involved in all these organizations what we can do to serve them and support them and get them involved and send out information about us. Otherwise, they don't even hear about us. There's nothing. And we do it once a year. Okay?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we'll have, if we're professional and we're organized and people are impressed on the work we're doing, we need to get our website set up, right? Website set up. Then we will be successful and we'll bring in money. So there was another agenda item that I had that I feel like we forgot, which was this one. What do we need to do to make money? So part of me feels like we should skip the Venus session preparation. And instead focus on this money making for 5 minutes.
Okay.
It'll only take 5 minutes. The Venus session is simple, guys. It's like, decisions doc, policies and policy proposals. Get our policies organized. We need to do plasma reporting. The most important plasma reporting is for the Mars session. Right? So again, for the Mars session, we need, create a Mars session systems doc, create a Mars session verification spreadsheet, create a Mars session client doc, right? And then the other important thing to note here is that the Mars session is the Legion member relations. So the Legion member relations doc right here is another place we can document everything in regards to the Mars session. But the actual session support and the Legion member relations are totally separate things, right? Because the member relations happens every single day. All our team equity with all our membership equity, all our tokens, it's daily. Whereas the Mars session only happens once a year. Okay? All right. Any other last questions on session support, Venus session, Mars session, Earth session? We spent a lot of time on this. I think it's good though that we did it. But the Legion membership relations is one of our projects. Do you guys understand the difference between the Legion and the membership? You guys care? Okay, well, let's move on. Looks like we're ready to start wrapping up. So really quickly, let's go over what we need to do to start making money and to bring income, more income, more money. All right?
Yes.
Okay, so this should be quick. The bottom line is we need to be following our methods, systems, processes. What types of methods, systems, and processes need to be functional so that we can bring in money?
We can bring money when we through this session that we need.
Session support, yep.
Invite.
Yep, session support, definitely. Can anyone name another method, system, or process that needs to be functional in order to be able to bring in money?
Accomplishing client work.
Let's call that worker coordination. Right, so this includes like weekly check-ins and verification, right? Client work verification. What else? Any other processes, systems, methods? Let's just throw out there communications, especially worker communications. Right. Also, we have to do our client relations. We need to do client invoicing. If we don't invoice the money, we don't get anything. We are so close with finishing our own internal invoicing. As soon as we finish our own internal invoicing, which should happen next month, right? So internal invoicing for client work. So we've only been doing client work, and so now we need to add the internal ops invoicing again. And after we do that, then we'll move to client invoicing. So every single client in the UMBUS client pools gets an invoice. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's very important to invoice the clients, otherwise you get no money. Right? No invoice equals zero money. That's one of the reasons why we got fired from our clients, because they didn't understand the value that we were doing because we didn't invoice them and tell them what we were doing. That's the invoice to your client is the primary means of communicating your value. All right. Anything else? I'll just add this one as its own, like the tokens and Legion and member systems. It's super important. Recruitment, yes, that's good. Like recruitment's here as well. All right, so all that needs to get set up. Our websites, we need to get our websites up and running. This is doable. It's also client work now. Getting our taxes all done and completed, very important. You know, I think that some of the minor things would be like Plasmo is pretty minor in the bigger picture. You know, all of this is meaningless without Plasmo, because if we don't do all of this, our Plasmo report is that we are bad. So without systems functional, the Plasmo report is that we suck. Right? With functional systems, we can report that we actually are doing something. All right, so anything else? I mean, and this could all happen in weeks. You know, technically, this could all happen in weeks if we step up and just do it.
Exactly, that was what I was saying. Unless everyone step up.
Realistically, I'm thinking, you know, end of August. You know, so our September, I think our September Mars session could be a really good deadline for our in you know, our client interaction and increasing workload. Right, so if we can get everything set up by the Mars session, I think that would be really, really good. Right, and then the only other thing that we have, which is also responsibility, is our list of services and work that we can do for clients. Right, so this is the most important.
For us to complete all these things, most of the questions they need you. I will prefer when you see somebody did wrong thing, instead of chatting, just call that person in a hangout and show the way forward. Instead, you know, wasting time on chatting is just like doing nothing. Instead, when you say I did wrong on something, just say, Lucy, are you present right now? I just want to show you the way forward. This is not like this, is not like this. We are going to move ahead if you do that instead of say, why are you doing this? We blame each other. It's not
good. So are you requesting me to do something? I mean, I'll always try my best to not engage as much in the Skype, but it's difficult when people have questions and things like that. We try to answer them, you know, as quickly as possible. Is there another? Was there a specific request to meet?
Yes, just my request is when someone asks the question, ask that person to come over the hangout and show them. When somebody did something wrong, or whatever assigned task that assigned to do is not doing in a correct way, kindly just make yourself available on the hangout. Imagine that 30 minutes that you waste Skyping and you are with someone on hangout. That's the best. You train that person within that showing instead of messages.
Well, I would agree. Definitely getting on the hangout is better. So we just need to make sure that we're scheduling. But I don't think it's all on me. I think that you know, one of the problems is that we get on the hangouts and then we get on these sessions, and then it's like the work that people do just disappears. It's like Zilu's been working on Mo taxes for months. Nothing is presented, right? You guys said you worked on sponsorship the other day, but then when we got to the buddy team, you wanted to work on the Mo taxes. So there was nothing presented of all the work that you did. So well, it needs to go both ways. The people need to bring the work that they do to the session so that we can go over it together as a team. But most people don't do that. And then I'm like, well, where's the work? And then you just link it on the Skype. And then that's the only time I get a chance to look at it, right? So
yeah, like now for more taxes, we cannot know how far Zilu is. If we cannot present where he is so far, then we cannot know.
Yeah.
So Zilu has to communicate in the right way.
Exactly.
If there is some help, we are able to step in and do it, because it has been now 3 months, if I'm not wrong, on more taxes.
The finishing point right now, step 4 is going to complete it within tomorrow, maybe, and the next day I'm going to report with the IU. And the previous first 2 weeks was going for overall and wait for the CSBs a lot. Though I started with the step 0 on lots of days ago, but have to wait for the and then
yeah. So but Zilu, what we're trying to say is that, like, this is a method, right? So we're talking about a method here. We're talking about the method of how we communicate to our team about the work that we do, right? That's what Lucy's talking about here, right? So the way not to do it is to randomly give reports, you know, in sessions or on Skype, you know, out of context, right? What you just did is just not helpful. None of us can respond to it, right? You just basically like, oh, level 4, like, you know, step 4 is done and this is done. This will happen tomorrow. All that. It's not even an agenda item. We can't respond to it. We can't actually go into it in any detail. it doesn't help, right? So the way to do it is to prioritize it as a priority topic and focus of the meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what you do. We prioritize the topic, make sure that it's clear, link the documents to the notes so that we can review them together as a team during the session. And then also, communicate the work being done regularly. Don't wait for it to be, quote, completed. We want regular updates. Does that make sense, Lucy?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, Zulu, if you can be available on the Hangout, it is also good to train someone on that. It will help. Tomorrow, when you are not present, someone else can step in and do it. So we prefer teamwork than individual work.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely would love to help more on Motaxis. So if you're around more, Zulu, you can, get the whole team working on it. I mean, it's more than you could ever do by yourself. There's a lot of work there. So
Yeah.
plus we have, once we finish Innovate United, there's all the other ones.
Also did the process that you showed me yesterday, Jay?
Yeah, you can work on that for sure. Mm-hmm. And we need to work on that more together as well. Like all of it needs to be done together as a team. It's a lot.
Yes, it's a lot, but the thing is, Zulu is not always working with anyone. Most of the time, let's be sincere, you work
So
alone.
I have scheduled 2 body teams yesterday. Today morning was, but no one shows up. And even when I was at Andromeda body team, there is no one coming. So what can I do on the body team? On one I am. But when I'm not, then people are asking to come.
Yeah,
well, it's possible without scheduling. I have scheduled on a specific 2 days, and level 4 workers is scheduled for 2 body teams. So I am on the policies. So, but if not showing up people on the body team session, then if in an emergency, then I will come to hang out every time I'm coming.
Okay, let me answer you on that. Scheduling your body team on that, maybe if you see people are not coming, it's not there. Maybe most of the people, if you want to get people to work focused, you schedule on Zurich.
Yeah.
Because you can even train like someone like these people because they don't make it to Andromeda and
but
also
the police
likewise to Joseph and not make it on Andromeda and Robert. It's their own issues of their own family. That's it. You have to understand that.
Free on the Zurich end.
Wait, even though you work alone, just test what you did online. Say, I work on this. This is, you have never, by the way, you have never do that online. Even if you are work alone, and just pass whatever you did online, even though you did it just only individually. You have to communicate. Also, let us know where you are. We don't really need to maybe work with you. If you decide to work alone, can you just send it over the Hangout?
Cool. So, I mean, I agree with.
Not allowed.
So I agree with both of you that we, generally everyone needs to communicate more, both on Skype and Hangouts and everything. Super important. Also, we just have updated our schedule in the last week and a half, right? 2 weeks. So Zilu has his brand new schedule. This is the first week that he was doing his level 4 buddy teams during Sonic. Only one person needs to show up. And technically speaking, Zilu, you can't schedule without someone scheduled to be there. So either someone didn't show up and didn't check in and there's a problem with the schedule, or that you didn't schedule correctly and get agreement from someone to schedule. Like, your availability is not your schedule. Your schedule requires agreement from another person to agree to be there at that time, right? So if we need to check in on our schedule, we can make that a next step. But basically, Zilu only needs one other person to be present. You can do a video recording. You can record the trainings, the information. Joseph can watch the video. Other people can learn about it through emails and other messaging online. So, we can do this with what we have, and Zilu can make himself as available as possible. It's just one step at a time. Okay?
Yeah, but the jury is not possible for me right now.
Which is fine. Zilu should not be required to go to Zuri meetings. And maybe we need to recruit some more people who can attend sessions that Zilu is available at, you know? So Lucy, how do you feel about that?
That's okay.
Cool. So, but I do feel like there might be some type of responsibility here in regards to our worker coordination. So this has to do somewhat with, you know how, like one responsibility that we already have is we do, you know, responsibility verification spreadsheets, right? So on this, we write, you know, 40% complete, right? Or, you know, 50% complete or 75% complete, right? So we're verifying how much the responsibility is completed. But what we don't do is we don't verify. So this would be like verification of work communications, right? So this would be like, you know, did someone update their responsibility work status, right? So this is more of, instead of a percentage complete, this would be just basically yes or no, right? So I think this could be another part of worker coordination where everybody has assigned responsibilities. This is the responsibility that they're working on, that they've chosen. Then once they've chosen that responsibility, we need to hold them accountable and to verify with the worker coordination that they actually are reporting back and updating everybody on their responsibility for where it currently exists. And so this would also be a manager role, right? To basically just verify that workers are communicating about their responsibilities at all. Does that sound good, Lucy?
Yes, sound good. And also in future, I think we need to have every project need to at least 2 to maybe someone can take on 2 projects to be responsible of in case of anything, so that we know who is accountable of that project.
Two projects, like entire projects?
Yeah, someone can take like 2 projects and another person like that. When you see any responsibility that fall under that project.
Okay, well this would all be manager. This would all be manager work. So this would be coordination and management work, and that happens at the Mercury session. So I don't know when the next Mercury session is, but it's very important. We should double check it. But then we need to prioritize the positions and the projects, right? Project coordination, because we have way too many projects. There's 46 projects right now. So we should be able to prioritize, for example, like the top 5 to 10 projects, and then make sure all of those are taken care of, because we don't have enough people to do all 46 projects. So maybe prioritize the top 5 to 10. And that can happen at the Mercury session. Does anyone know when the next Mercury session is?
Just a minute to confirm.
Mercury session will be on 20th July.
All right, so let's note that July 20th. I'm actually traveling that particular day, but I'll do my best to be there. But that would be good to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So make sure to index this information into the methodology doc so that we have this method, because I think this is really important for work, like a work method.
I'll do that.
And then also, I think it's time to wrap up and check out. But I want to mention that for our 6-month goals, I mean, I think it's really like the Mars session and client income, increasing client income is our primary goal. You know, let's get functional. We're so close. Right? If we could just get that done in the next 6 months. By the time the next Earth session comes around, will actually be a fully functional network instead of just, workers, right? Whereas right now we're just workers, right? We have there's no like membership, there's no active, executives or active like network that we're interacting with. It's just us by ourselves doing our work. Lucy?
I'm taking you back on what we need to do, increase our income. Apart from the question that we put in the worker coordination session support, what else do we do?
What do you mean? Well, we have all of it here. We need to do all of this.
Yes, apart from this one, do you have external client work that we can do apart from this? And so that we can just do a serious recruitment and get serious people.
Well, again, we're not going to be recruiting people for money because we don't have any money. So most of our recruitment will be for volunteers and no upfront pay, right? Because we don't have money right now, right? So in the context of we have money, we just don't have a lot of money, right? So we're trying to be frugal with our money, right? So in the context of the client work, there's no guarantee that we will get more client work unless we get it, right? So it's like, but if we don't ask for it, we're not going to get it. If we don't ask for more client work, we won't get it for sure, right? And the bottom line is that we are not going to ask for more client work, at least from Rico. Right? Anyone can create any business they want to and get their own clients, but the clients that I will be responsible for, we're not going to ask for more client work because we still can't even do the client work that we already have. Do you understand?
Yeah, you know the problem of recruiting for volunteers. Volunteers, they cannot take things serious because they just knew that just there to volunteer. Either they do, they don't do, they don't care. That's why I was asking if at least we have our external client work, serious people so that we can get income from those clients.
Yes,
I think that will be better.
But that's the difference between the vision and the mechanics. The mechanics is that we're just all here to do work and make money, right? But that's not the vision. That's not why we created and founded the African Community Network, right? The reason that we're all here is because our purpose and our vision is to transform the world to make the world a better place, right? So in that context, the reason why we want volunteers is as a service. If we are not recruiting and outreaching into the world and asking for volunteers and getting people involved based on the mission and vision of the organization, then we're not meeting the basic functionality of our purpose and vision, right? It's taking on volunteers is work, right? It's extra work, but it's part of our nonprofit, network. Right? That's what we do. Most of the work will always be getting done by unpaid volunteers, back pay, non-upfront pay. So in that context, it's like, if we don't have the ability to deal with volunteers, that's a problem. Then we're not functional. We have to be able to do that. And it's extra work to deal with volunteers. It's a service that we are providing to the public, right? That people can volunteer with us. And the answer is yes, they are less serious than paid workers, and that they actually create more work for us, but we have to do it. It's part of our purpose, because without that, we are not meeting our obligations as a network to transform the world and help the world. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But if you have like at least 10 people that can help even volunteers to work, so just 10 serious people that they can get work done.
Okay, but I guess another way. Oh, keep going.
Then the rest are volunteers. Then it's going to be okay. I know we are here to change the world, but to help our communities in future. But if we can have at least just serious, like 10. Even right now, if we have like 5 people serious working, making sure that all the worker coordination is done, everything that's given during the meeting is done, then we can move. Even volunteer, when volunteer come, it gets you understand something. It's not good when a volunteer come and ask you, you don't know what is there in organization, and you are a worker who is there. I think it is good if we get a serious people, at least 10 or less than 10. That can get work done.
Well, the bottom line here is that there's 5 of us. This is it. This is the whole group. This is the whole team right here. We got me, we got Albina, we got Zeely, we got Steve-O, we got Lucy. We're the ones who are here. We're the ones who are serious. We're the ones who know about everything we're planning for the Mars session. We're the ones who know about the Earth session coming up in 6 months. No one else is going to do it. This is it. Right? We have 16.
Even the problem is not even showing up. The problem is not even being serious. The problem is showing up and commitment.
No. What I'm saying is that we showed up. We showed up. We're the ones who are here. We're the ones getting the equity. We're the ones who are in power. We are the ones who are responsible. There's no one else. This is it. And it's perfectly fine. The 5 of us can do this. If we put our minds to it and we just get focused, we're perfectly fine. We don't need to waste our time with other people who didn't show up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my point is that we're all here. This is the 5 of us are the board, basically. We're the ones making the decision on how we're going to move forward. We're the ones who are in control between now and the next Earth session and making sure the Mars session happens. And it's all gonna happen because we do it and we make sure it happens, we follow through with it, or it's not gonna happen because we don't do it and we don't follow through with it. Right? No one else is gonna change that. No one other person in the network or other worker can do what we can do. Right? Because they just don't even know about it. So unless they watch the video or something like that, this is it. So anyways, another way of saying the recruitment piece is that we need basic recruitment systems for both paid and unpaid workers. Right? It doesn't matter whether we get volunteers. I don't care if we have volunteers or we don't have volunteers or what the volunteers do. The problem is that we're not even asking for volunteers. Do you guys see what I'm saying? We're not doing recruitment and we're not doing volunteer recruitment. We need to do both. There needs to be a fully functional recruitment model where we're doing outreach recruitment for volunteers and unpaid workers, simultaneously doing internal recruitment for paid workers. They need to happen concurrently. They need to both be happening simultaneously, and they need to both be happening at the local level and global level. Right? And this will be local SFA, at least, if not other places, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that our recruitment systems are not functional. Right? I don't care whether we actually recruit workers or not. The point is that we're not even doing the recruitment. That's the problem. Like, we can't take on more clients. Like, let's say we get another $10,000 per month client. Right? For example, we get a $100,000 investment, or we get a $10,000 per month client. Same difference, right? They're both about $10,000 a month. That makes sense? So then what is the first thing we have to do? To meet the client goals or the goals of the investor/donor. What's the first thing that we have to do in order to meet the goals? $10,000 a month, $100,000 investment. What is the first thing that we have to do? Recruit.
People.
Why do we have to recruit? Why is that the first thing?
To be the right people to take on the tasks.
No. We are the right people.
To get organized.
No, they might get us less organized.
Build up the positions.
Yes. Need to fill the positions because we can't do it by ourselves. Like the 5 of us can't do it. Although we're the right people, it's just too much work, right? So all of this work that we need to do, we can do this with the 5 of us because we don't have anything else to do. There's we have no timelines, we have no clients, we have nothing that we need to do right now. We have all the time in the world between now and the Mars session and January's Earth session to get all this done. Right? So as long as we don't increase the budget, we've got $1,600 a month, got plenty of money. As long as we don't want to like hire a bunch of people who we have to pay $20 an hour, we can get the taxes done slowly but surely. We work together as a team, we're perfectly fine. Right? But if we get an investment of $100,000 or we get a $10,000 per month client, we are no longer fine. We need to get another 5, 10 people involved to help get the work done, if not 30 people. You understand?
Yes, we understand, but the only thing we are focusing to get involvement of people is not actually going to work, because if you have 10 people and 2 people is working overall with client and assigned and the internals, but the 8 people is showing up in the body team, getting the training after 2 months, 3 months, they are also the same position and nothing goes. So it affects the budget, it affects the community, it affects the overall condition. So only 2 people is going like working and the 8 people goes idle, but they are involved in the budget, involved in the body teams, everything. What about the policy?
Yeah, so what we need is we need clear off.
On those.
Yeah.
So what about the?
Yeah, so this goes back to another component of our internal method systems and processes is our rankings, right? Our rankings and our budgeting, right? So our rankings and our budgeting needs to be really clear. We need to do rankings for worker coordination, right? And then we need to cut people automatically from the budget that are not stepping up and participating, right? It needs to happen automatically. It's like you don't want to do the work, and then we need to offboard.
But I'm nothing.
What? Say again?
Yeah, I'm going to the body team. I'm going to the sessions. I'm everywhere, but I'm doing nothing that can move forward with the community, for the community. So and we are spending lots of hours for them, lots of money for them, lots of budget for them, but it's not actually healthy.
For who?
You are very right.
Can you give an example?
Like now it's a lotting.
Can you give an example of a person?
I'm not going to give any example. I'm just I'm saying that for the future purpose, what happened, that is past is past. The present position is very, because we don't have enough funds. So we have to recruit the people that have minimum eligibility, like whatever. We have to make this.
No. So this is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand here is that we are not an organization. We're not a company. We're not trying to make profit, right? It's not about efficiency and treating people like machines, right? It's like that we're trying to get away from the idea that we hire someone because they're a machine and because they produce the work that they're going to do, right? What we're creating here is a community that gives everyone a chance. Everyone's considered equal. Everybody gets a chance, right? So what we need to focus on is not the people. If we focus on the people, then we're going to get stuck in a system where we're basically, it's all about.
No, we are not focusing on the people. We are focusing on the community's position and the moving forward.
What we need to focus on is the systems for hiring and firing people based on their productivity and ability to get the work done, right? So for example, if we hire someone and they can do the payroll, that's perfectly fine, right? If they're not able to do anything else, they can't do plasma, they can't do you know, mow taxes. They can't do, you know, Legion. But if they can do one thing, then we hire them to do that one thing, and then we get someone else to do something else, right? So the point is that when we have someone involved in our network, they only need to be able to do a single thing, and it's all relative, right? So for you guys, when we hire a new person, it might seem to you like they're not very functional and they're not doing any good work. But to me, it's still kind of like you guys aren't doing that much work, right? It's all relative, right? When I see these new people come in, I see reflections of you guys. I mean, you know, 8 months ago, you were in the same position, right? You know, but it's like over time, certain people get more involved and do more work, and other people don't, and then they fall off the bandwagon. And we get rid of them, right? So what we need to do is we need to have better, efficient worker coordination, and making sure that our budgets are done correctly, where we're automatically removing people from the budget based on the rankings who shouldn't be there, so that it's functional. Like there's no possible way that we're ever going to have a perfect system where we magically hire people who already know how to do everything, unless we want to pay them like $50 an hour or $20 an hour, and then from there that they're just going to perfectly fit in. There's always going to be a worker who's going to be a problem, right? And instead of trying to prevent that, we just accept it and create systems and processes to deal with problem workers. We're going to be perfectly fine. Because you only need one single problem worker, and it can make the entire team fall apart. You understand? So instead of focusing on preventing problem workers, if we just focus on our systems and processes of how to deal with all the problem workers quickly and efficiently, right? Think back January. It's only been 6 months since January, right? If you go back to our previous Earth session, we had tons of money, right? Everything was going great. And then bam, a week later, we lost our primary client, right? The Bitcoin and cyber currencies crashed. You know, we lost the majority of our money, right? It was a complete disaster, right? Crash and burn, right? It took us over 4 to 5 months to just do something as simple as cut the budget, right? All we needed to do was cut the budget. You know, we still haven't to this day stabilized all our finances, right? Canopy never happened. No one stepped up in Canopy. We didn't actually do the goals that we set out from the last Earth session, right? It was just too much work, and we had plenty of people. We just didn't do it, right? So it wasn't a problem of the workers. Otherwise, we would be the problem, because we were all there when all that was happening, right? So it's the systems and processes that are the problem. And we've all agreed on this multiple times, and that's why we focus on the methods and the systems and the processes. And now we have a system and a process for our budget, right? We can cut our budget very, very quickly. In fact, me and Lucy voted at the quarter moon session that we should immediately cut our budget down to $1,600 a month and not wait a month, right? Because our budget was potential income of $4,000, and now we're talking about cutting it down to $2,000, if not less, and doing it immediately instead of waiting. So now we have processes and systems for how to coordinate our budget, how to coordinate the workers, and ensure that, you know, we're more functional. So let's keep focusing. But the idea that we would do client outreach and bring in new clients without a functional recruitment system is just crazy. We need a functional recruitment system that does basic recruitment for both local and global level workers, for both paid and non-paid workers. And we need to have a clear ranking systems, and we need to be able to cut people from the budget and have good budgeting systems and good offboarding systems for people who aren't active and are not stepping up.
I have a question.
Without that, we're just not going to be successful. We can't take on clients, you know, and then not be able to get the work done because we can't hire the people and we can't train them and we can't work as a team to get the work done. It's just not going to happen. And I think we're really close. What does it say? I think on our recruitment systems, we're 65%. So we're over halfway there. Albina.
Yeah, now we have 3 new recruits. That's Maricel, Wahoo, and Farah. Let's just focus, give them, like, when there is client work, let's just tell them to focus on one thing. If it is client work, let them focus on one client at a time. At least it will make us move forward than just engaging them to do everything like internal business operations. If we intending to fulfill our client work, let them just focus on client work.
So Maricel is client work only. Client work only. Farah is kind of like, she's kind of, let's get at least 1 to 3 client work and 2 internal business ops, right? She could even do a manager, right? She could be a manager as well. And then Wahoo is pretty flexible. She can basically do whatever she wants because we don't really have to pay her very much. She's the lowest costing worker that exists, right? So it's the lowest cost. And she's ranked very high. So in the context of the bottom line, the policy is this: choose 5 responsibilities and also list priorities, right? And then we, as the leadership, choose 1 of the 5. That make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they choose 5 responsibilities, and then we as a leadership choose 1 of the 5, right? The one that we choose is the top priority, right? The idea is if they choose 5 responsibilities, the goal is that at least 1 of those 5 responsibilities is a priority. If they only choose 1 responsibility, then the probability that it is actually a priority that we want to train them on is very low. It'll be like a 1 in 5 chance, or 1 in 10 chance that it'll even be helpful. So we have them choose 5 responsibilities so that we can at least have 1 of them that is actually helpful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In the moment. Cool. But yes, 1 at a time. And it's also I would say this is worker coordination relates to a method, but not quite. That everyone needs to do the work they are signed up to do before going on to the next responsibility. So let's do some examples. Zilu needs to do the Mo taxes, right? We should not be assigning Zilu to do other work until he gives us what's going on with the Mo taxes, right? Lucy and Albina were doing the sponsorship program. It's like, get the sponsorship program output. Like, what is the output for the sponsorship program before moving on to do more work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steve O. What's Steve O working on?
Majorly internal business operations.
We'll give an example.
Like today, even we took him through the voting form, how to create voting forms.
All right, so a voting form, right? So it's like output, create a voting form before moving on to another set of work.
You also work on budget.
Sure, budget, whatever.
Payroll.
Sure, payroll, front. But the point is that let's get, when you train someone on something new, let's get them doing output before going on to something else, right?
Yeah.
That should cover it. So as long as they learn the responsibility, then we train them on a new responsibility after they're able to do the existing one. If they can't do the existing one, then we take it off their plate so that they're no longer doing it before giving them a new responsibility. So we would switch responsibilities on them, okay?
Mm.
Oh, I want to take you back. I have a question to what you said about the canopy. Saying people are not respecting. I myself for many times to work on canopy. But you said you are busy, maybe next time, such a thing. I just prefer maybe if you can have someone that help you, Jay, especially on the task that you know, that will be great. Because when you are not there, that person will help the rest of the members. Like canopy, everyone was, in fact, people are willing to work on canopy. The first question you said, we should focus on system and processing. We leave canopy like that. That was not even our fault. You said, let's go back to system and processing. Let's not focus on canopy. Many times I work with you, even if you can go back to the videos that we work with you because we recorded it. You say, let's go back to do system and processing. Let's first leave about canopy thing. Always like that until the canopy is gone. So you need just to work with at least some few people or two people who are very serious that can handle the issues when you are not there. Something to do with the canopy. If you trade 3 people, these 3 people will help the rest of the members because you are the only person that everything we need. When we need clarification on canopy, we need you. When we need on more taxes or any other thing that we don't know, we need you. Why can't you just call hand with only 2 people, maybe 3 people who are very serious to help the rest of the members when you train them? Because when you are not there, everything will stand waiting for you. And,
so I would agree. I think that's fine to like, having 2 to 3 people step up to learn everything is good, right? But I want to respond to the rest of it in terms of the canopy stuff. Can I respond?
Wait, you will respond all over. Okay. That's one. You said before when we joined when we are like other members that are coming now. No. People who are like the members who are coming now, they are no longer here. I remember when I joined this organization, I did not know anything, but I'm very much willing to do it, to know it. If somebody is active, you really want to know something, you will move forward. But if someone comes and wait there, by the end of the month, somebody gets money and go. They're not even serious. They don't know. They are like somebody like Phil. Yes, he was there before learning, but he's willing to learn up to this moment. Like someone like Abdul also before, he did not know anything, but he's very willing until he knows what he's doing. I think you cannot say before, even you guys before you are like that, like them. No, we are not the same.
Okay, so can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so relativity. All right, so for the executive jealous support, which would include the canopy and the other work, right? We need 2 things to happen, like 2 very important things need to happen, right? One is that, the work needs to be getting done, right? So all of this stuff needs to be getting done so that the executives can focus on the executive work. Right? So in order to have the time to spend on the executive work, the overall work needs to get done. So for example, today, one of the reasons why we have all this time to focus on the bigger picture of the network as a board, right, as a council for the Earth session is because, our budget is in pretty good shape, right? Our communications are in pretty good shape. Like, I mean, overall, we are in much, much better shape than a couple months ago, right? We've averted the crises, for the budget and everything. Like, so we're able to relax a little bit today and get into deeper discussion about where we're going and what the bigger vision is about what we're trying to accomplish, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that in order to have time to spend doing executive work, the other work needs to get done. Otherwise, yes, I have to help focus on the other work that needs to get done. And so there's less time to be working on the Canopy, but I don't think you guys understand how much time I was putting into Canopy. I was literally like in January and February, I was doing like, 30 to 40 hours per week on Canopy. So we needed people to step up to the level orange, or level red, right? And do the 30 to 60 hours needed to make it happen. And it's not easy to do that, and we were not capable of doing it. And that's fine. Like, it's obvious that was the case. There's nothing we can do about that now. All right. So the second thing that needs to happen is that there must be someone who can listen to and understand everything going on in the network. So minimum, 50 plus topics and responsibilities and priorities per session, 1 to 2 hours, and then really need to be on top of at least like 100 to 300 priorities. All right, so this is yet to happen. Right, so it's like the opposite of this. Example for what the opposite of this is. Jay comes to buddy team session and is told by Lucy that we are working on Mo taxes. And that Mo taxes has been prioritized. And the reason why that's the opposite is because us prioritizing working on one thing and doing a bunch of training is the opposite of reviewing 50 topics, if not 300 priorities, to get a grasp on everything that's going on in the network. So the bottom line is that we need to be able to quickly and efficiently review 300 priorities and plan and focus on the top essentials to move the network forward. Right? Someone needs to know about everything going on. If you don't know what's going on, then you can't possibly be able to prioritize it all. So does this sort of make sense? Do you guys understand it all, or not?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're not even close to this. Right? So I mean, let's just look at some people here. So here's me. Let's put some other people like Steve K. And then Mel. Is there anyone else that could give us an example? Let's do someone like a Mike slash Marsha. All right. So let's say we have 100%, 100%, the best possible hypothetical global organizer for social transformation. Right, so this would be the goal. So maybe Mike, Marsha, some like global Occupy workers, et cetera, there might be 75%. I would put myself at like a 60%. Mel's maybe like 30%. Steve K was like maybe like 19%. Right? So let's look at Zilu, Lucy, Albina, Steve O. Right? I would say, Lucy, maybe you're getting towards 5, like 6, 7%. You know, Albina maybe like 5%. Zulu, 4%. Zivo like 2.5% or so. Right? Wahoo, and then we're talking about the new workers. Wahoo, Farah, what's the other girl's name? Maricel. So Maricel's like maybe Maricel's like a point, 0.5. Farah, I just don't even know. I haven't worked with her. So the point is that the relative ratio of where the new workers compared to where you guys are compared to where other global organizers are, it's just all relative, right? It's for you guys to be at the level that I'm at, it would take you like 10 years, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, since 1998. Right? So the time it takes me to explain something to you, it takes me like 10 to 15 times longer to explain it to you than it does for me to do it myself. It's excruciating. You guys just don't see that and understand it because you don't understand that in perspective. But then you look at Lucy related to Marcel, it's the same with relativity. Right? So if you take a 6.5% and you divide it by 0.5%, you get 13 times. Lucy is 13 times more organized and effective global organizer than Maricel, right? Jay is 10 times more effective and organized than Lucy. Do you understand what I'm trying to say in terms of the relativity of the workers?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you guys, when you see the new people come in, you feel like those people are wasting your time. Right? And the answer is yes, they are wasting your time, but you're wasting my time. Right? If you were at my level and I just told you to do something, it would get done, boom, it would be done. But instead I have to say it like 10 times and do training on it over and over and over and over again because you don't know what you're doing because you're new. And instead of firing you and going and hiring someone for $20 an hour or some other person, we're supporting each individual unique person to learn and step up in their role and treating everyone equally. So in my mind, I am equal to Lucy is equal to Marcel. There's no saying that I am any better than Lucy or any better than Marcel. We're just all at different stages in learning how to do global organizing work. And the bottom line is that yes, Marcel is excruciating and working with her is really difficult. But in 5 years' time, if she stays involved, she will be better at doing global organizing than you are now. Do you understand?
How do we know that? And yet she hasn't even done anything.
She's been around for less than a month. When you were here for less than a month, trust me, you hadn't done anything. It takes people like literally, 3 months, 2-3 months to just get their bearings. And some people, yes, they won't be able to communicate or their language barriers or they just can't work with the computers or whatever it is. And then we get rid of them, right? But we give everyone a chance. People who actually put in effort and try to do work, it's going to take people many, many years to get to a level where they are fully enabled to really make a major difference. But I mean, in my perspective, the actual level of organizing that we're capable of right now is still very, very low. Our team is not functional, right? You guys can, in your perspective, you're like, oh, wow, we're doing so much. This is amazing. That's wonderful. But in my perspective, and people looking at us from the outside, and actual, fully functional global organizers across the world, we are nothings, right? We're barely at, a couple percentage points as far as being a functional team. And our goal is to get to 100% fully functional global organizing network to transform the world. It's like we have a lot of work to go. And it's perfectly fine not to be great. We're doing our best, But we need to give everyone a chance and realize that, that they aren't as good as you are because they're brand new. Give them a chance, educate them, train them, work with them, help them out, instead of just throwing them under the bus and saying you want to get rid of them. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't seem like that is teamwork, and it doesn't seem like it is public accountability, right? If you think about public accountability, right? Public accountability is very simple. We are accountable to people who know nothing, right? So people are at 0%, people are at 0.1%, people are at 0.25%. They know little to nothing, yet we are accountable to them because our work as staff is to work for the public, right? So if we can't explain something to Wahoo, Farah, Marcel, then obviously we can't explain something to the public, and therefore we're not doing our jobs.
Then no one do not like to work with those people. I think they are not the first recruit that we work with. I think like everyone who was a recruit coming here, we train them. I don't know who we do not train them. The thing is, if someone is not willing and is scheduled at the right time to work with you, how can we? For me, I'm very willing to work with them, but which time did they schedule themselves?
Look at the schedule. Did you look at the schedule? They're all scheduled except for Farah, but I think Farah might be scheduled as well. And they're all scheduled for like 1 or 2 days a week. Like the amount of work that can happen in a one or two, session, like buddy team sessions, is like nothing, right? Why do people work only 1 to 2 sessions? It's because it's going to be more work for us to have them working 5 days a week than to have them work 1 to 2 days a week. Do you understand? If they're working 5 days a week, they just get in the way because they don't know how to do anything, right? So we say, okay, we're going to schedule them for 2 to 3 days a week, get them trained up, right? Put our effort into helping them so that once they learn a responsibility, then they can do a 3rd day and a 4th day. And by that time, they actually know what they're doing and they can work on it, right? If they don't know what they're doing, then they go back to 3 days a week, or they go back to 2 days a week, or they go down to level 2 or whatever. The point is that we want to keep a leash on their involvement so they don't overwhelm us, right? And if it's going to be like a volunteer or someone who can work and do whatever they want that we're directly accountable to, they can watch training videos. Assign them to watch training videos. They can watch thousands and thousands of hours of training videos because we're not paying them, right? It doesn't come out of the budget.
So one thing unclear to me, that Farah and Miracle is for Jello. So why the Jello team have a specific schedule? So why they are asking to independently do their schedule? And the roles of responsibilities for the Jello worker have a dropped, and they are specifically mentioned the time 11 p.m. UTC to 1 a.m. UTC is the Jello.
So Wahoo's global worker.
Wahoo's global, yeah.
Farah is a Jello worker for now, but she might become global as well. And Marcel is Jello, okay? So Jello is going to expand into New World. So this includes Andromeda, Cobalt, and Sonic, and then eventually maybe add some Hydra for 1 or 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
because of that, will continue. Because of that, are they just like they can choose a random day to work with. I think we are going with the levels, like those who are scheduling themselves. They are going with it. Which level body team that is there, like we got for Alpina, we got for who. So I just choosing any other day. They're just choosing any other day, even though there is no level 4 body team that is scheduled on that day.
Does that can someone describe how a schedule works? What's the difference between availability and scheduling?
You schedule the time that you will work on.
Okay, but scheduling requires agreement. We have to agree to their schedules. If they have an availability and they're like, oh, I want to work on this time, and we don't agree to it, they can't work at that time. They're not scheduled. Do you understand? Their schedule requires us to agree to their schedule. So we only agree to the schedule that we agree to. If we don't agree to the schedules that they're proposing, then we say no. Right? Let's take a look at the schedule real quick, because obviously there seems to be some confusion here.
Yes, there is. Like for me, I see it's like a limit. Because I remember Steve he wanted to schedule to work Saturday at 5 p.m. with Joseph, but there is no any other body team that is on Saturday at that time, so they cannot schedule for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
maybe you have to be clear on that.
So what's the question here on the schedule? And I'm looking at the New World schedule. If you want me to get the Old World schedule, I can get the Old World schedule. But right now I have the New World schedule.
No, just an example. My question is, am I able to schedule myself even if it is just there is not any other level 4 body team on Zuru time? Because I remember only at Andromeda we just work always down. We show up with Albina. We don't know whether there is a schedule for a level 4 body team there. But for Zuri, we strictly follow the level 4 body teams that are scheduled themselves there. So we show on during Lucy body team, Albina body team, then my body team again. So can I schedule, like if I want to schedule myself with someone on Saturday and work there? Is that right?
Well, I think one thing we need to do is we need to do badges, right? So one of our next steps is badges, and we need to review the badges for each person. So if you have 3 badges, that would equal 4. Wait, I think we're doing. I don't even remember. I think it's bronze. Bronze badges.
Bronze, yeah.
So 3 bronze badges equal 4 level 4 buddy teams. All right, so being level 4 is equal to 0 bronze badges, which is equal to 1 level 4 buddy team. For each bronze badge equals 1 additional level 4 buddy team. So if you get 3 badges, you get 4 level 4 buddy teams total. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah.
So we'd want to review how many badges each person has, see if we want to increase or change the badges, and then each person can do their level 4 buddy team based on that. But the answer is that you're correct that in the old world that you can't just randomly work whenever you want unless it is self-driven assigned responsibilities, right? That everyone present already is trained on the work that they need to do, right? If you don't know what you're doing training that needs to happen during regularly scheduled level 4 buddy teams, right? So with the New World, a lot of this is scheduled as basically level 5 work with Jay. So the only level 4 buddy teams are with Zilu. And then everything else is with me, right? These are all with me. So Lucy and Farah for Friday and Jay and Farah for Saturday. So Farah is scheduled here for 2 days a week. Wahoo is scheduled for Thursday, Friday. Teresa scheduled for Friday, Saturday for Cobalt. And then Wahoo and Marcel are scheduled for the main Cobalt session. So what's the problem with that? Is there a problem with that?
I think the schedule is different with the old one. For new one, it's just like the schedule where J is, and for old one, we just use only level 4. Then I just prefer that you have to review budget so that we have enough also budget teams there.
Sure. So, I mean, basically the bottom line is because I'm at level 5, so I can do more buddy team sessions at level 5 buddy teams. So these would basically be like level 5 buddy teams. But even beyond that, it's really, we need more time to work with me as much as possible, because there's just, like you said, you know, you guys need to work with me as a lot more, you know? So if we want to cut down the number of days during Andromeda and Cobalt, I'm perfectly fine for that. If we want to, like, for example, we could cut Tuesday, Wednesdays. We don't need to have Lucy, Albina, and Jay work on Tuesdays or even Mondays. We could cut Mondays and Tuesdays, right? If we want to reduce down, you know, I'm perfectly fine cutting Mondays and or Tuesdays, because it's already a lot of work. But I'm doing this to be able to help with payroll and help with all the work that you guys want to do. It takes away time from me to do that. Like, I have plenty of work to do already without needing to do training and work in all the buddy teams with you and Albina and Zilu and other people, but I make myself as available as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to try to do more Sonic, but Sonic is very difficult for me because it's in the evening during family and other times. So I don't know.
Even it is also tricky for us when we work during Andromeda and Cobalt. Probability on showing up on Sonic is very low.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's like you know, like, let's say you were gonna do Sonic on Friday, we could cut out Andromeda in Cobalt, and then you just show up for Sonic instead. That makes sense?
Me, I'm okay with Andromeda.
Yeah. So
Okay. Also, Zilu, you should schedule with Stevo. Mostly he show up during the Sonic Stevo and Jessica. You can Stevo and Jessica. They're good for that because they like showing up very early morning. It will be morning time or what.
Okay, Albina and Raju already agreement, but if they don't show up, then I move to another person.
Move to Stevo. You can just ask him now.
Thank you.
also, it's good to mention that Eileen put Thursday, Friday. She put her name up here on Thursday, Friday with nobody. It just said Eileen and nobody, and that's unacceptable. You can't schedule by yourself, right? Eileen needs to schedule with somebody. If she wants to schedule during Hydra, she would need to find someone else who wants to schedule with her, and then maybe we could add a Hydra day, you know? But the idea that she would just randomly set up her own buddy team when she's not level 4 is not going to happen. Even if you are level 4, you need someone to agree to schedule the time. You can't do it by yourself, right? Or teams. So do you want to go through the old world schedule real quick as well? Should I pull it up? Or are we good?
Yeah. Yeah, good.
We're good. Okay. So basically the reason why the old world is limited to only level 4 buddy teams is very simple, right? Why is old world limited to level 4 buddy teams? Do you guys want to try to answer that, or do you want me to answer it?
I don't know the reason.
Okay, it's because it is not that hard to get to level 4, right? Step up, or get out of the way, right? It's like, get over yourself. You know, it's like Steve-O, you've been around here for like, 8 months. You barely talk during the sessions. It's like you are perfectly capable of getting to level 4 if you put some effort into it. You just don't put effort into it. So sorry, no, you can't work an extra day because you're not level 4. If you care, you'll be level 4 and you'll just do it because you care. If you don't want to be level 4, you're not going to be level 4 because you don't care about it. You guys understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? It's not that hard to get to level 4. It takes a little bit of effort. Right? You just have to put a little energy and effort into getting to level 4 and actually want to do it. Otherwise, no, you can't do extra days. It's like, even Rachel and Jessica are perfectly capable of getting level 4. They just don't put effort into it. So it's like if people want to get to level 4 and add more buddy days, then you just add as many buddy days as people want to. And then once you get to level 4, you increase your badges and you can add more buddy days, right? So let's do our badges. Let's prioritize the badges. Let's double check with each individual person to see what badge level they're at. And then people can add as many days as they want to. And eventually my goal is that I would cut down on the days that I'm working because we have plenty of other people working other days, and recruit and get level 4 people and level 4 buddy teams in the new world. We had to cut pretty much all of the previous new world workers like, Jorge, Steve. I don't think, Miguel made it to level 4. I think he did. So I think Miguel was level 4. So anyways, we had to cut them not because they weren't good workers, because they wanted to get paid 3, 4 times, 5 times as much money as we had in the budget. Right? We only cut them because of the budget. That's the only reason. So now we need to recruit new people who can, work within the budget for the new world working, right? Which is, may or may not happen. But eventually, once we get new clients, we'll be able to hire more people and we'll get the new world schedule and the new world buddy teams in level 4. Everyone up to level 4, it'll be good to go. And the next thing you know, we'll be a functional organization with 8 octants and full teams. We don't need money for that. You guys understand? We can create a fully functional global organization with 8 octants, everything level 4, all the senior managers, all the co-chair elections, everything without money. We can do it with volunteers and tokens and no upfront pay. It's not a problem. It just takes some effort. All right, but I believe we'll be able to bring in more money. For me, the goal is to be fully functional with money. Goal to be fully functional with money is $250,000. With $250,000 in the bank, we can basically pay people to do it. Otherwise, we must rely on volunteers and no upfront pay. Does that make sense?
So can we update our recruitment? For those who are, we need to have like different, those who are volunteers, we should have a different template, and those who want to work with us, then we could at least we specify the rate.
Volunteers and paid workers go through the same process. Every single volunteer needs to agree to give up their right for upfront pay.
Yeah. Just the same process, but getting payment. Like, someone can come there high grade, like now Maricel has $13. She can just work for 4 hours and she's done with money. But what about that person who has, she double like 5 people, the one having per hour? Why can't we come up with we just put as an example on our template, we need maybe if it is a global or a world worker, from maybe let's say from $2 to $5 when we see. In future, if we have a budget, someone is very much willing to even go beyond what he was putting there. So that to limit when someone comes with a high probability of getting high payment.
Well, we can propose it, but it's all relative. I mean, every worker everywhere in the world has their different needs, and they should be able to put what they need on their sheet And the easiest way to do that is to have it be open, you know, and not to pre-designate a number. Like, let's say someone was willing to work for $1 an hour, but you write $2 to $5 an hour. Why would they write $1 an hour? They're going to write, you know, $5 an hour, you know? It's just as soon as you start putting examples and numbers, it really is pushing them in a certain direction. And then also, what really matters is that they keep it as low as possible, which is what we write. We say keep it as low as possible, and then they set up their buddy team, and then they can change it whenever they want to. So it's really shouldn't be that big of a deal for people. But people who put too big of a number, they automatically get ranked out of the budget, right?
Yeah.
So I want to get moving forward to checking out here. I mean, I think this is really good, but we need to get focused on the work. I want to mention there's an event on July 14th that I RSVP'd to. I believe it's a Saturday. Yeah, that's right. Saturday the 14th. So it's in 1 week. Is that right? Yeah, 1 week.
Yeah, 1 week.
1 week. So I mean, I think we want to add like a $50 client work for this. This is like a it would basically be like a donor/investor meet and greet. So there's lots of things to prepare for this event. So lots to do to prepare for this event. Last time I went to this event, you know, maybe there's like 3 multi-millionaires, at least, you know, 1 over 5 million, and lots of potential donors and people who know people with lots of money. All right, all on transformation and using 1% money for making the world a better place. All right, so this is a very important event for potentially bringing in money and getting donor investors, like actual money that we wouldn't have to do client work, right? And we might be able to get some clients as well, but the goal at this event would be to network with people who would just give us money for free, right? That we wouldn't have to work for them. We would just get money to do the work we're already doing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And Tracy is one of our advisors, and she supports us and wants us to be successful. You know, so she's inviting us to this event to try to make contacts to bring in money, right? And raise money to help us, you know. So anyways, 2 to 3 hours of preparation over the week is super important. So this would include, like, you know, cards, you know, stickers, sign up lists, you know, one-pagers, email preparation for follow-up, and then follow-up afterwards. So then after the event, we'll have a bunch of business cards. I even have business cards from the previous event, you know, so we have investors who are interested in the work that we do. We just don't follow up with them, right? We need to follow up with them, send them emails, send them information about what we're doing, send them our videos so they can watch and learn more about us, right? Have our websites up, you know, websites would be helpful. So, you know, I'm working really hard to bring in more money and get all this happening and moving forward. You know, we just need to prioritize it. Okay, so this would be added to our current budget. So we are currently in the